Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 54 of Coach Bennett's podcast, entitled Running Streaks. That's right, this episode 54 is going to be all about running streaks, but we've also got more to talk about than just running streaks. I guess it's not all about running streaks, because before we get into the heart and the soul of this episode, I want to talk a little bit about some of the track and field that I've been watching lately and been lucky enough to go to. And in fact, I will be watching even more track and field this weekend and next weekend. So you've heard me say before, if you want to get better at running by doing something that doesn't involve more running, like become a fan of the sport, you will become better at running. And I'll tell you what, this summer, we've got so much running to watch. The Olympics are coming this summer. You've got the U.S. Olympic trials, which, you know, I'm biased, but I think it's maybe the best track and field meet in the world because of the tension, the excitement, the quality, what's on the line. That's coming in less than 2 weeks. And this weekend, I'll be at the Nike Outdoor Nationals, which is the high school national championships. There's going to be some great races there. I'll tell you what I'm most looking forward to, though. The girls' mile. Get this. There is a chance at this meet that over 50 girls will break 5 minutes for the mile. Over 50 in one meet. Now listen, it could be way more than that. The reason why I'm saying 50 is because 50 is nuts. I'm pretty sure I spent some time looking at some other major meets over the last 10 years where the most I could find in one meet, the most girls breaking 5 minutes for the mile, high school level girls, was 42. And that was a couple years ago. So I'm thinking there's an outside chance, not even an outside chance, there's a very good chance 50 are going to break 5 minutes, which is just, if you're a geek, if you're a running nerd, then you know how big a deal this is. The depth in quality has gotten so deep in girls track and field across all the events. And in distance running, it's just gotten to be wild. Doesn't matter if you're looking at the 800, the mile, the 2 mile, cross country. So it really is remarkable to see just how good it's gotten over the last really 20 years. There's been a resurgence from now, I guess we're at 25. The quality is just, it's mind-boggling. Breaking 5 minutes, I'll just put this in perspective. Breaking 5 minutes in high school, when I was in high school, which is in 1990, don't worry about it, was massive news. Like, I think I remember 2, 3, 4 girls in my 4 years in high school that broke 5, I want to say, in New Jersey. There could be more, but it wasn't much more. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I just remember that barrier being so severe. It was a really, really hard barrier to break, and it still is. It's just that more and more athletes are smashing it. It's just so exciting to see that Heat 1, Heat 2, Heat 3, Heat 4 are just filled with these extraordinary athletes. And the cool thing here is in the United States, outdoor track and field, I believe, is once again, in terms of just numbers, the highest participation sport in the United States. It's got more people taking part in it than any other sport, which is super exciting. The growth in indoor track is really strong. The growth in cross country is really strong. You've got people deciding in high school to do track and field, to do cross country, instead of some of these other sports where, if you go back 20 plus years ago, a lot of the impetus to do track and field or cross country might have been because you didn't make a team that you wanted to, like a soccer team, a tennis team, a football team, a basketball team, a baseball team, a softball team, and you said, you know what, I'll do track and field. And now you've got athletes saying, no, I want to do track and field. I want to do cross country. It's really great to see. And the results of that, you're seeing now on the track. You're seeing great athletes taking part in this great sport. So I'm really excited about this weekend and the girls' mile. Last weekend, I was in Eugene, Oregon for the NCAA championships, and I was there for the last day of the men's competition, which was on Friday, and the last day of the women's competition, which was on Saturday. And a couple things I got to call out. Men's 5K, started out super tactical, and then about a K to go. Graham Blanks of Harvard took it over, really injected some pace into the race. It got really, really saucy in there, and it came down to about 300 to go, and you had Nico Young, who is the collegiate record holder in the 10K and the 5K, Graham Blanks of Harvard, who had, like I said, picked up the pace, dropped the hammer, split up the field. He's the NCAA cross-country champion. And then you had Parker Wolf of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels, go. And guess what? By the end of the race, all three of them were NCAA champions because Parker Wolf had won the race and won his first NCAA championship. It was epic. But I'll tell you what, the real highlights came on the women's final day. In a race that I don't think I've ever seen a performance like this before. The Arkansas Razorback women in the 400 got fourth place, third place, second place, and first place. They went 1, 2, 3, 4 in the women's 400. It was insane. All of them under 50 seconds. It was the single greatest race performance by a team I'd ever seen on the track. 1, 2, 3, 4 at the NCAA level. And then a couple hours later, they come back and utterly destroy the NCAA record in the 4x4, running 3:17. They just demolished every other team in the 4x4. It was unbelievable to watch. Just utter domination. So tip of the cap to the Arkansas Razorbacks. It was just amazing. So those were just two performances that really stuck out for me. I had a great time. I'm looking forward to going to Nike Outdoor Nationals this weekend, and I'm looking forward to the U.S. Olympic Trials. I'm looking forward to the Olympics later in the summer. I hope you are too. I'll put links to some videos of the races that really stood out for me. I'll also include a link to the live stream for Nike Outdoor Nationals, so you can watch that this weekend too. And I'll give you a link to some information on at least the schedule for the U.S. Olympic Trials, so you can watch that as well. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to say it one more time. If you want to get better at running without running an extra stride, become a fan of the sport. It is your sport. Be a fan of it. All right, let's get into episode 54, which is running streaks. Now, a few weeks ago, I actually ran a little run around my neighborhood that happened to be a pretty special day for me because it was my 6th year in a row of running at least 5 minutes a day. So it started for me as a way to just get more consistent. That was how the streak started. It wasn't, I'm going to keep running for 6 years every single day. It was really just to get me motivated to run through the month of June back in 2018, I believe it was. I'd been really inconsistent with my running, and as a result, I just needed something to kickstart some consistency. Because here's the thing, I am better when I'm consistently running, better in an infinite variety of ways. But I feel better about myself. I'm more confident. I feel like I have more energy. I'm happier just from running consistently. And it makes sense. I mean, you can read the literature, you can read the studies. Physical activity plays a part in all of those things. Our mental well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, if we are consistently active, physically active. So I knew that if I could just consistently run, I was going to be a better version of myself. I didn't have any additional goals. It wasn't, I'm going to try to run X distance in 2 weeks or 2 months, or I'm going to do this race, or I'm going to try to run this fast. It was simply, I'm going to run every day in June of 2018. And what I did was, I said, I'm going to have a minimum duration of 5 minutes. And I chose 5 minutes because I knew I could do 5 minutes. I knew that if I had had a delicious dinner of spicy tacos, I'd still be able to wing a 5-minute run. I knew that if I had a busy day of work or I was traveling, I could sneak in a 5-minute run. So I kept it at 5 minutes. And what happened was I got through June running at least 5 minutes every single day. The other thing about the 5 minutes was I knew that if I run 5 minutes, there's a chance I run more. So on those days when I'm like, I don't feel like doing it, or I don't have that much time, maybe I've got 20 minutes and I feel rushed, I'll go out for a 5-minute run. Sometimes that 5-minute run turns into a 10-minute run, a 15-minute run, or a 20-minute run. So that's an extra benefit, because really the key was like, can I just start a run? And it worked. And June turned into 30 days in a row. I think I had run like 2 or 3 days in May as well. So it was like 33 days in a row. And I've never been a streak guy, ever. Never tried a streak, never wanted to do a streak. When I was running competitively, I just took days off when I needed them. And for most of my career, actually, I took days off I didn't need, it's a whole other story. But the point is, I never had like a really long streak. When I was coaching high school, I think there was a period where I ran like 60 or 70 days in a row because I was running with the team. I was running on my own. I was just around it so much on a daily basis that it was really easy to go for a run. So I think that was the longest I had ever gone, was like 60 or 70 days. But obviously soon enough, the streak turned into 2 months in a row, 3 months in a row, 100 days in a row. And I wasn't really paying attention to this streak. It was only on those bigger days when I'm like, I think I've run 100 days in a row. And I'd look and it would say like 97 or 104. And then I was like, oh, I've run 200 days in a row. I've run a year in a row, I was really proud of. But I get asked quite a bit from people who know that I've been running consistently now for a few years, like, is the streak still going? And I've been able to say, yes, it is. And I haven't run yet today, so the streak could actually not continue after today, but I think it is going to continue because I want to go for a run. So I figured, let's do an episode, not so much on my streak, but on running streaks and what I think are great about them, what I think are maybe not so great about them, and if you're going to start one, a few ideas on how to make sure it's successful. And by successful, what I mean is not you continue the streak. What I mean is that the streak is good for you. So we're going to break down running streaks, and we're going to start with the most important question of all. Why? Why do you want to start a running streak? Which is absolutely the first thing you have to ask yourself before you start a streak. Because you're going to want to come back to the why. And it doesn't mean the why doesn't change, but initially, know your why. Why are you starting this streak? For me, like I mentioned earlier, I knew that consistently running was making me a better person in a lot of different ways. And I missed that. I wanted that. I wanted those things back in my life from when I was running consistently. So ask yourself why. Think about it. Why do I want to start a running streak? And don't limit it. The whys from that question of why can be multiple. Okay? It could be you want to get fitter, and you know that consistent running is one way of doing it. You want to kickstart your training for something else that's going to occur a month from now, 2 months from now. You know that it helps you deal with stress. You know that it's your excuse to get outside. And if you don't have an excuse to get outside, you're going to stay inside. And you know being in nature, getting some sunlight, all of these things are good for you. Just figure out your why. And I'll tell you what, write it down, because you should have a running log. You should be prepared. So if you're going to have a running streak, okay, make sure you have a running log and write in there my why. Why am I doing this? Okay. So that's the first part. Make sure you know your why. The next thing, make sure the streak is doable. Okay. It doesn't mean that it has to be easy, because I'll tell you what, any streak is inherently going to be tough because you're demanding yourself to run consistently, which is not easy to do. So make sure it's achievable. Don't set yourself up for failure. set yourself up for success. Now, when I say that, a lot of people are going to misconstrue that and think I'm saying make it easy. I just told you, streaks aren't easy. They demand consistency. Consistency is hard. So right off the bat, any running streak is not easy. Okay, so get over yourself. If it was, you'd already have a streak. All right? Think about it. I'm right, aren't I? I am right. The other thing is, think about what you're going to personally qualify as a run. And this is entirely up to you. For me, like I told you, I used 5 minutes as the minimum. I wanted it achievable, and I also wanted it long enough that I'm moving. Okay? I know 5 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little better, maybe. Or if that's all the time I've got, 5 minutes, that's legitimate. For me, that's going to equal a legitimate distance. It's a legitimate duration. It works. The other thing is 5 minutes is basically how long it takes to get out of my neighborhood. And it's uphill. So I know that 9 times out of 10, if I'm running from my house, I have to do a 5-minute uphill to start. So if I want to stop, okay, but I could also just turn around and run downhill back, and now I got a 10-minute run. I also know that after 5 minutes, if I leave my neighborhood, it flattens out. And I'll tell you what, when you've been running uphill, even flat feels pretty good. So I was setting myself up for, if I can run for 5 minutes, there's a really good chance I'm going to want to run more, or at least I'm going to be willing to run a little bit more. So I kept it at 5 minutes. Now, in the past, when I was trying to kickstart my running again, I gave myself much longer minimums. In my head, maybe I wasn't as emphatic about it as I was with this streak, but I would think, I got to at least run 3K or 5K or 20 minutes. That was kind of my mindset. Those were legitimate runs in my head. Anything less than that would be illegitimate. So I was being a pompous ass, and I was robbing myself of consistent running, because what would happen is, in my head, that became too much most of the time. I can't run 5K right now. It's late. It's raining. It's miserable out. I don't have the motivation or inspiration to go out for a 20-minute run or a 25-minute run, whatever it was. And inevitably what would happen is I'd get overwhelmed by the distance or duration minimum that I had set, and I wouldn't run. And then I would miss a few days. And I'd become inconsistent. And all of those benefits that I would get beyond the physical fitness benefits, I wouldn't get, because I'd be back to being inconsistent. And then I'd beat myself up about being inconsistent, which made it even worse. So make sure you're setting yourself up for success by making the challenge doable. You can make individual runs harder if you want to. That's fine. Like for me, I say it's a 5-minute minimum. It doesn't mean I don't sometimes go for hard runs. It doesn't mean I sometimes don't go for long runs. It's just a 5-minute minimum. It's not stopping me from making the runs challenging. It's not stopping me from making things more difficult in a positive way. My point is, the minimum part has to be doable. Because what is the real goal here? The real goal is that you run consistently. So if you're setting yourself up for failure, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to be inconsistent, which is just stupid. It's not hardcore. It's just stupid. So make sure you're setting that minimum at a doable level, something you know you can accomplish, okay? All right, great. The other thing is, what you're going to want to do is have the goal, or maybe the hope, to find a groove. Now, this is what I mean by that. And you may have heard me talk about this on guided runs or even on this podcast. You want to find a groove in your running where you're relaxed about it, where, some of this has to do with planning. Because if it's just willy-nilly, like, I don't know when I'm running, I'm just going to run when I can run every single day, and I'm not going to look at my schedule, it becomes stressful. So one thing is, there's a little bit of planning that's going to help you find your groove. Like tomorrow, I know that between 5 and 7 p.m., I'm going to have some time to run. So I'm going to kind of live my day in the assumption that between 5 and 7, I'm going to run. So I'll let people know that, between 5 and 7, I'm probably going to get my run in. I'm going to, eat some meals at the right time so it's not screwing up that period. Those are the types of things that you just want to do, just basic planning. So you can find that groove. You're going to want to know some runs that you can do from different places. It might be work, it might be school, it might be from your front door. You're going to want to have in your head a couple of options of where to run. And the reason why I say a couple of options is because you're hoping for a groove, not a rut. Okay, not a rut. And what happens is when we do the same run on the same day at the same time, at the same pace, what can sometimes feel like a groove, and it just turns into a rut. You just get bored. It's the same thing every single day. So what you want to do is hope for a groove and keep it groovy. And the way that you do that is you mix things up. I'll tell you what, one of the best ways to be consistent in your running is to do your runs inconsistently. And what I mean by that is do different types of runs. There shouldn't really be amazing consistency in the type of run you're doing. You want to mix things up. You want to mix the course up. You want to mix the efforts up. You want to mix the type of runs up. You can do a fartlek. You can do a recovery run. You can do a longer run. You can run on the trails. You can run on the roads. Yes, you can run on a treadmill. There's lots of different things you can do. You can go to the track and do speed work. You can do a tempo run. You can mix these things up. You can do a little bit of an easy run and be like, this is boring. I'm just going to throw in a little fartlek just to mix things up. Or, you know what, I'm going to make that left turn I don't normally make that takes me on the trails. And the trails are going to be a little messy, so I'm going to have to really focus because there's roots and there's mud. And great. Fantastic. Again, you don't have to be consistently running the same run to be consistent. And I would say inconsistent types of runs, littering your week of running, is going to lead to consistent running. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I mean by find a groove, stay out of ruts, by mixing things up. Okay? The other thing is you're going to want to be coming back to yourself on a daily basis, okay, and asking, is this good for me? Am I better for doing this? And yes, that's the run, but that's also the streak, okay? You want to keep coming back and asking yourself this. Now, there's a couple of things that might trigger you asking yourself this, and there's sometimes when you may be lying to yourself, and in a lot of different ways. Lying to yourself saying, this isn't good for me, and it is good for you. You're just being lazy, or you're tired, or you're lacking some motivation or inspiration, but you really should go for a run. There's also lying to yourself saying, this is good for me, and you may be sick, you may be hurt, or the streak may no longer be giving you what it needs to give you, and it's no longer a good thing for you. But one thing I want to bring up, because having done one for a while, there's a difference between good for me and easy for me, and bad for me and hard for me, okay? So let me just break a few of them down. Good for me is a positive thing. I'm doing this run and it is good for me. And it doesn't have to just be on the physical fitness side. Like I said, I've done a lot of 5-minute runs over the last 6 years. I know that my physical fitness isn't, improving dramatically with a 5-minute run, but I do know that a 5-minute run is helping me dramatically sometimes, emotionally, mindfully, spiritually. There's a lot of different ways a 5-minute run can help me. So it is good for me. Now, easy for me can mean a lot of things. Sometimes it is going to be easy for me to go for a run. That's great. That's a good thing. But sometimes it would be easier for me to not go for a run. Sometimes it's difficult to go for a run. I have to remind myself that just because something is hard for me to do does not mean it's bad for me to do. And you can get confused when you have a streak sometimes, because there are times when I'm just lazy. Really, I'm just lazy, or I'm stressed out because I have lots of work to do, and I'm going to start saying this run is getting in the way of the work I'm doing. But you know what? I've got the time to do the run. And I'm just beating myself up. And what I'm doing is I'm actually attacking the one thing that actually really deep down, or maybe not even so deep down, want to do, which is go for a run. So it may be hard for me to do the run for a number of different reasons. That doesn't mean it's bad for me to do the run. But also, just because it's easy for you to do the run doesn't automatically mean it's a good thing for you to do. Okay? Just something to think about, okay? Another thing I want you to think about is that you are running the streak. Don't let the streak run you. I'm going to say that again because that's a pretty good line. You are running the streak. Don't let the streak run you. I have a very simple rule. If the run is not going to end with me better, I'm not doing it. And I've had some hard decisions to make. I've just been, to be honest, pretty lucky when it comes to injuries and sickness over the last 6 years. Been really lucky. But if the run was not going to end with me better, I wasn't going to do it. If the streak had to end for me to be better, fully prepared to end the streak. Fully prepared. And I've had to make decisions where I've wanted to go for, let's say, a 30-minute run. But I know that 30 minutes would not be good for me for whatever reason. Maybe my calf was acting up. My hip was bothering me a little bit. My knee was a little achy. I was feeling a little run down. Am I getting sick? And I knew, you know what? I'd love to go for 30 minutes, but I'm going to need to go for 10 or 5. And I made those decisions because I was thinking big picture. I don't want to do a run that ends with me worse. Why would you ever do that? So sometimes you're going to have to make hard decisions. And I'm fully aware that at some point I'm going to have to say, you know what? The streak's over. And I'm going to be okay with that. This was never about getting to 6 years or 6 years plus or whatever. It was about running consistently, which has brought such joy into my life. But that's the key. If the streak starts taking joy from my life, it's done, it's over. If running starts taking joy out of my life, I'm not going for runs. It's not happening. So you're going to have to sometimes make a hard decision, which isn't to go for a run. The hard decision is going to be to not go for a run. Just ask yourself every now and again, if you've got a streak going, are you in charge or is the streak in charge? Because the streak is going to make decisions not based on what you need. The streak is going to make decisions based on how to keep this streak going. But that's not why you're doing the streak. You're doing the streak to make yourself better. Okay? So, you're running the streak. Don't let the streak run you. All right. Now let's talk about something that's, I think, kind of fun. The different kinds of streaks you can have. Because there are so many different types of streaks. Not every streak is run every day. I think a lot of people think like, oh, you're on a running streak. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean you've run this many days in a row. It could mean I've run 3 days a week for 2 years in a row. What an awesome streak. That's fantastic. That's really cool. It could be I've run at Homedale Park every Wednesday for the last 3 months. That's super cool. It could be I've met my run crew every Monday night for the last 7 months. That's an awesome streak. There are a lot of different streaks you can have that are not, I repeat, not based on running every single day. And then on top of that, remember, not every streak has to be X minutes or X meters. But you can have that too. You can have a minimum duration, meaning in minutes. You can have a minimum distance, which could mean meters or miles. You can do something totally different. You could have a streak where you say, you know what? I do one speed run a week and I never repeat the same speed run. How cool is that? I never run the same loop, And you can just alter it by one street, one block. I mean, how cool is that? I think that's amazing. There's a lot of different ways you can have a streak. Be inventive. Because here's the thing. You want the streak to be fun and you want the streak to be motivating. You want the streak to be inspiring. You want the streak to be something you're not only proud of, but like I said, you're better for and you look forward to running. So mix things up. Have fun with maybe the streak. And it can change too. I can change mine. I could change my minimum duration. I could turn it into a distance. I could change it entirely. Maybe I'm not running every single day. Maybe it's every other day. Who knows? My point is, you are in charge of the streak. Remember, you're running the streak. Don't let the streak run you. So make sure when you're setting this up, you're having fun. It could start out as I'm going to run 2 days every single week, and then it turns into 3 days, and then 4 days, and 5 days. And next thing you know, maybe you are running every single day. Here's a little note, though, I want to say. Because I get asked from people, can you run every single day? Sure. Of course you can. If you're able to, and you're smart about it. Here's the thing. I can't run hard every day. I can't run long every day. I can't run fast every single day. That would be silly. And I wouldn't have a streak that lasted 6 years. Because a lot of the days are 5 minutes. A lot of the days are 7 minutes or 1 mile or 1K. I mean, you have to realize that, yes, you can be physically active every single day. You just can't do certain things every single day. And a lot of that has to do with, yes, the duration, the distance, the effort, and intensity. Those are the things that you want to play with so you can be physically active. We walk every day for the most part. I mean, I'm always amazed at my friends and family that live in New York City that walk miles every single day. Every single day they're walking. And most of them, they're not even paying attention to it. They just do it. And then suddenly, they're with someone who has like a watch that measures this stuff. And they're like, do you know that you did 24,000 steps? And they're like, what are you talking about? This is, I'm on the subway. I got to move. I got to walk. I got to walk uptown, downtown. I got to do all this stuff. Like, we just do it. And I think one of the negatives that have come from, I'm rambling here, but don't worry about it. Just let me get this out. One of the negatives of this like metric-centric focus that we've got now because of our phones and our watches and they measure everything is we're starting to count everything that in the past we just did. And we're equating it now with work as opposed to just life. Like, it's when I was teaching and I would have to, walk around school. I walked around my class all day. I had practice afterwards. And sometimes I would have to run, sometimes I would have to walk, and then maybe there was a meet for the other part of the team, and I'd be walking and moving around there. That was my day. And I remember I had a watch that was measuring all of this, and I started to get stuck on all of these steps. And I remember what happened was eventually, was on the days where it would kind of really balloon up, I would overly focus on it, either in a celebratory way, like, look how much I did, or I would say, oh my goodness, I'm so tired, I got to back off. Whereas prior to wearing this device, this was my day. I did what I needed to do, and I was still able to do the other things. So if you are someone who measures everything, and I'm not saying, I'm not anti-metrics, I love metrics, but just be careful that the metrics don't rob you of your joy, or don't convince you that you can't do big, awesome things, okay? Don't let them sway you, setting big goals or confusing you now that you're measuring them. I guess that's my thing, is that I've got a lot of people that I know that for years have walked 20,000 steps a day, and then suddenly now that they're measuring it, it's overwhelming to them. It's like, you've been doing this. You've always been doing this. It's okay. I see the same thing. I have a Ironman watch, Timex Ironman watch, which doesn't have a GPS. And in the past, when you would go for runs, you've had the duration. I didn't know exactly how far we had gone. In the past, you would start a run, finish the run, and you were given the minutes. That was it, minutes and seconds. And then you just kind of figured out how far you think you ran. And obviously, we were off. We didn't know exactly. So you'd say, we ran 10K. Well, yeah, it might have been 10K. It might have been 10.5K. Might have been 9.5K. Who knows? I don't know. We didn't measure it with a GPS. So we didn't think like we were getting robbed. It didn't ruin the run. And I think that's something that happens when people say, their GPS is off by 500 meters, that it screwed up the run. No, it didn't. It didn't screw up the run. It didn't screw up the run at all. You might have run 500 meters more. You might have run 500 meters less. It's okay. It's okay. That was a long ramble. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about other types of streaks that you can start, okay? Open-ended and closed. Those are two types of streaks you can do. So, for instance, I started mine with, I'm going to do it every day in June, and it just became open-ended. I don't have a goal for this streak. There isn't a number. There isn't a year. There isn't an amount of days. I'm just running. So it's open-ended. But I could very easily have said, let's do a 1-week goal, which I think is a great goal. Like, how many days do you want to run this week? All 7? 5? 3? That's great. Maybe your goal's a year. Maybe it's a month. Maybe it's while you're on vacation. Maybe it's while you're at school. You have the ability to set up whether it's an open-ended streak or a closed. And here's the thing. It can be open-ended, and then you can close it. You can say, you know what? I'm going to run until, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to keep going. And you get through June, and you get through July, and you say, you know what? Middle of August, I'm done. Because I'm going back to school. This was a great streak. I got 2.5 months in. It could be closed where you say, like, I'm going to run every day in June. And then suddenly I get to the end of June. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep going. And maybe it's to the middle of July or the end of July. Once again, you're running the streak. Don't let the streak run you. Okay? Another thing to think about is that keeping the streak going does not automatically mean victory. And ending a streak does not mean failure. This is super important. Super important. Keeping a streak does not automatically mean victory, and ending a streak does not mean failure. You need to know this. This streak is an opportunity, hopefully, for you to run more. Enjoy your running more. Inspire yourself to cross more starting lines. Motivate you to run more. But the assumption here that I'm making is that more running is better for you. It's going to bring you more joy, more fitness, more happiness, more confidence, not more stress, not more grief, more anxiety, none of that stuff, okay? So remember that keeping the streak, if the streak isn't good for you, is not a win, okay? And ending a streak that is not good for you is a victory. That is a good thing. Those are important things to remember. And this is something that I think brings me back to the beginning, which is that question of why. Why are you doing this? And I'm basically going full circle here, I know, but I think that's the important thing, because at the beginning, the middle, the end of the streak, that question is the question. Why are you doing this? And if it's something positive, great. But if it suddenly becomes negative, then the streak's over. End the streak and feel good about it. Because here's the thing, when you end a streak that's no longer good for you, you're doing something good for you. That should be celebrated. Just like starting this streak was hopefully bringing you more joy, more confidence, more excitement, more health. If ending the streak brings those things to you, it should be celebrated just as much as starting the streak. So do not equate ending the streak with failure, especially when ending the streak is good for you. All right? Super important to remember. And if you can't remember that, just be the coach you should be and tell the athlete that you are that. Right? Be the athlete, be the coach. All right? Now, here's the cool thing. We've got a Mindset Minute. That's right. We've got a Mindset Minute with Mindset Coach Extraordinaire, Coach Tammie. You guys have been peppering me. You all have been peppering me with, when are we going to get some more Mindset Minutes? Okay, I listened. We're having a Mindset Minute today. So without any further delay, I'm handing the baton off to Coach Tammie.
Today's Mindset Minute is really just going to be a series of questions that you can ask yourself when you might have those days when you're debating whether or not to keep your streak alive. So these questions, if you answer them honestly, will help you decide, do you go out the door and add another day to your streak, or do you end the streak today? Question 1, what would make it easier? Question 2, what would make it more fun? Question 3, how will it feel after you do it, if you do it? Question 4, would skipping it feel worse than doing it? Question 5, what does your body need? Question 6, what does your brain need? Question 7, what does your soul and your spirit need? Question 8, why do you want to do it? And question 9, will it set you back or will it move you forward? So take stock of your true, real answers to these, and that will help you either decide to keep the streak alive or to call it a day.
As always, she crushes it. So thank you, Coach Tammie, for once again coming in for a Mindset Minute. And I should also say, she nails the time. You know, like we call it Mindset Minute, but if she goes a little bit over, a little bit under, it's fine. But she's pretty much always right at 60 seconds. It's amazing. All right. That's the episode. Hey, this is what I would love from all of you. I would love for you to tell me if you're currently on a streak and why that streak is meaningful to you and what it has given you. I also want to know if you're thinking of maybe starting one and how you're going to make sure that this streak is a good thing for you. How are you going to set it up? What's the achievable goal? Do you have a minimum distance or duration? What's the cadence? Is it every day? Is it a couple times a week? Is it closed-ended or open-ended? Do you have a date where you say, that's the finish line? Or is there no finish line? I want to know about you and whether or not this is something you're thinking of doing. Maybe in June, July, August. Let me know. I'd love to hear about it because I'd also love to support you if you're taking on a running streak, okay? There we go. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast. Thank you so much for rating and reviewing it. I see a bunch of reviews coming in. Thank you so much. It really does help. And as always, until we meet again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll meet you on your next starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you're not already following or subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening, well, I really wish you would because it helps a lot. Also, check out the show notes because you'll find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter, as well as all the social media sites that I'm on. Places like Threads and Facebook and Instagram and Mastodon and YouTube and even the artist formerly known as Twitter. Whatever that dumpster fire is called today, you'll find a link to it because I'm on there. Thank you so much again for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself.